Hi there. Let's talk about section 4.1, graphing equations in slope-intercept form. We've done a whole lot with equations of lines in chapter 3, and now we finally get to write and graph equations. So first things first, you should know slope-intercept form. Some people have been familiar or catching on to this. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The m always, again, stands for slope. The b might be new to you. It is the y-intercept. So I've got a couple simple examples down here. Practice number 1, it says write an equation for a line with the given values. Notice I give you the information. I either call it the slope or the m. I either call it the y-intercept or the b, but they are interchangeable. So these two pieces of information get filled in, and the x and the y stay at x and y. So for number 1a, if the slope is 3 and the y-intercept is 5, all we're going to do is y equals 3x plus 5. The m, or the slope, was replaced. The b, or the y-intercept, was replaced. 1b, if they tell me the m is 8 and the b is negative 3, that seems even simpler. You'll just end up with a y equals 8x minus 3. So pretty simple, just substituting things. But now let's talk about how to use this. So if I give you a graph, how do you write the equation? If I just give you information, we're going to work into that. But the first thing you always have to know is the slope. And I've been saying this forever. You've got options. Use 2 points in the slope formula. You could count rise over run on the graph. You could find the change in y's over the change in x's. Make yourself a table. But you need to find the slope or the m value. Next, you need to find the y-intercept. On which axis will you look for the y-intercept? Right, you're always going to look on the y-axis. So where does the graph touch the y-axis? That is your y-intercept or your b value. And then you just put your m and your b into your equation, and you have got yourself an equation. So let's do one example like that. I've got a few there, but I think that you're going to see what we're doing because we've been doing this. So let's just do number 2. We could use 2 and 4 in class. Let's just do number 3, I mean. So the first thing we always need to know is the slope. Is it spelled out for you? Can you figure it out? On a graph, I'm probably going to count rise over run. If I'm just given ordered pairs, I'm probably going to do the slope formula. So rise over run. So to get from this 0, 3 point right here to this 3, 0 point, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. So down 3. And then I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3. Remember, slope is always a fraction. And of course, we're going to simplify that to negative 1 over 1 or just a negative 1. The y-intercept. Here's the y-axis, right? So where does that graph touch the y-axis? Looks like it touches it at 3. So that means my equation of this line, when I substitute the m and the b, will be y equals negative x plus 3 or negative 1x plus 3. M and b, you need to know them. So now let's talk about going the other way. Instead of here's a graph, tell me the equation. Here's an equation, let's graph it. So first things first, this is the thing that you might have to do a little pre-graphing work. If it's giving you something like 2x plus y equals 7, you might have to solve for y or put it into slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is when y is isolated or everything is solved for y. So you might have to do a little bit of work. If I asked you to put that 2x plus y equals 7 into slope-intercept form, probably everybody would tell me I need to subtract 2x from both sides. That's the only way to get the y by itself. So then I would have myself a y equals negative 2x plus 7. Remember how I said in the last chapter, start writing the x term first and the number second. And that's because now it's a nice, neat match for our mx plus b, and we can see the m and we can see the b. So you might have to do that pre-graphing work. Next, B stands for begin. Put the B on the y-axis. Begin with the B. Then use the slope M. M stands for move. So begin with the B. M stands for move with the slope. Vertically and horizontally, rise over run. And you're going to move from the slope, rise over run from that y-intercept, not from the origin. And last but not least, I like to have at least 3 points on my graph. Connect the dots, put arrows at either end, you got yourself a line. Some of you, this is going to feel very familiar. Some are it's going to be a little bit of a refresher, but you have done this before. I feel pretty confident. So let's just do 5 and 6. Let's skip 7 for right now. And I want to do 6 for a reason. So number 5, I'm going to ask you 2 things. I'm going to ask you the B and I'm going to ask you the M. So if we know that it is already isolated for y, so it's already an mx plus b form, my guess is everybody can tell me my b is 1 and the slope is negative 2/3. Notice how I write the negative 2/3 as negative 2 over 3 because I just don't want to forget there's a negative on there. You could put it in the denominator as well. So I'm going to take that b and begin on the y-axis with a point at 1. Then I'm going to move with the m down 2 and right 3. So down 2 and right 1, 2, 3. Down 2 more and right 1, 2, 3. I could go up 2 and left 3 if I wanted to. Any way it goes, once I've got at least 3 points on the graph, I'm going to connect those guys and put arrows at either end. Go way past your last dot. Make it a nice, neat line. Number 6 is an interesting one because if I ask you right off the bat, what is the y-intercept and the slope, you're going to waffle back and forth. How many x's do I have in this equation, y equals 1? I don't have any x's, right? So I could say that's like y equals 0x plus 1. Some of you are going to remember from section 3.3, the slope section, what it looks like, what kind of line we have when there are no x's, only y's. But it really does fit into the slope-intercept form. So now if we put a 0x plus 1, it's pretty easy to see that the b is 1 and the slope is 0. So I'm going to begin on the y-intercept. 1 again, it just so happened to be the same point. Now my slope is 0 or 0 over 1. So rise 0, run 1. Rise 0, run 1. As I keep rising 0, do you see why it's going to end up being a horizontal line? Connect those dots. Put arrows on either end. That wasn't so bad to graph. When it's y equals a number with no x's, it's always going to be a horizontal line. And let's do one more. Let's do number 9, just so that we can talk about that pre-graphing work. 9x minus 2y equals 6. This is definitely not in y equals mx plus b form, right? So this is where all that section 2.8 rearranging equations comes in. So I'm going to have to get this y by itself, so that means I'm going to start by subtracting x from both sides. When I subtract x, these guys cross out, I'm left with a negative 2y. I'm going to write the negative x and the plus 6 in that order, because I always like my x's first because it looks like slope-intercept form. My y is not quite isolated. How do I get rid of the negative 2? This is where some people are going to tell me add 2, and then I'm going to say, what am I doing with the negative 2 and the y? No sign means multiplying, so now you know I'm going to have to divide by negative 2. Now watch carefully. When I divide everything by negative 2, I have 3 terms in that equation, so I have to divide by negative 2 3 times. So these guys cross out. I'm left with y equals negative over negative for the x over 2. I know that becomes a positive. And here's what a nice little thing. I can take that x over 2. I know there's a 1 with the x. So I can just take the x and put it on the outside and keep the 1/2. So the number can stay as a fraction, and you can just pull the x right off the side of that fraction. So negative x over negative 2 ends up being a positive 1/2 x. 6 divided by negative 2 ends up being a minus 3. So now I can tell You can tell me what my m and my b are. B should be -3 and slope should be 1/2. So that means I'm going to start at I'm going to begin at -3 on my y-axis. And then I'm going to go up 1 and right 2. Up 1 and right 2. And I could keep going on and on. If I run out of room, I could go down 1 and left 2. Any way it goes, I should have a line that looks like that. Make it nice and long. Don't forget to put your arrows at either end. So that was some pre-graphing work. I had to do some work with that equation before I could actually do the math. So remember, whenever you've got that fraction, you can put the x on the side. I just did the math, 6 divided by -2 for that b. All right, so here's what I've got for you. Number 1, what's the slope-intercept formula? What does m stand for? And what does b stand for? Everybody can fill that in. That shouldn't be too tricky. Here's your practice problem. It's not a graph, but it's explain how to graph. So where should you start or begin? How should you move from there? If you wanted to graph it, you could. But I want to know if somebody didn't know what they were doing right here, and I gave this equation, y equals -1/2 x plus 7, what would you tell them to do? That is it for section 4.1, writing equations and graphing them. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.